Welcome to Heartline Stories. Today's story follows a millionaire whose life is turned upside down by an unexpected encounter with an orphaned girl in a restaurant. Four simple words from her freeze him in place and force him to face a past he tried to forget. What she says next will change everything he thought he knew about himself. As the tension builds, will Jack find a way to escape the weight of his past, or will he be dragged back into a world of betrayal and loss? Keep watching. This story will leave you speechless, and let us know where you're watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories. One rainy afternoon, a wealthy businessman named Jack Mitchell walked into a cozy restaurant in the heart of the city. He had just closed a big deal and was in a celebratory mood. Jack was used to luxury, fine dining, expensive cars, and expensive suits. But that day, something unusual happened that would change his life. As Jack sat down at a corner booth, enjoying a glass of wine, he noticed a little girl sitting alone at a nearby table. She looked about 9 or 10, and her clothes were old and worn. She was holding a piece of bread in her hands, staring out the window as if lost in thought. Jack couldn't help but feel a twinge of curiosity. Most kids her age would be busy playing, but this girl seemed so quiet. He tried to focus on his meal, but his thoughts kept drifting back to her. It wasn't that he had never seen someone struggle before. He had seen plenty of people on the streets, but this girl was different. There was something about the way she sat alone that tugged at his heart. As he finished his meal, Jack decided to do something kind. He walked over to the little girl's table. "Hey there," he said with a smile. "You're eating alone?" The girl looked up at him, her big brown eyes filled with curiosity, but she didn't answer right away. Jack felt a little awkward. Maybe she didn't want to talk to strangers, but he was determined to be polite. "What's your name?" Jack asked gently. "Lily," the girl said in a soft voice. "What's yours?" "I'm Jack," he replied, sitting down across from her. "So, are you waiting for someone?" Lily shook her head slowly, then looked down at the table. There was an uncomfortable silence between them. Jack felt the urge to say something comforting, but before he could speak, Lily said something that made his heart stop. "Are you going to leave me like everyone else?" Jack blinked, unsure if he had heard her correctly. The words hung in the air. His stomach tightened. He had assumed she was just a little girl enjoying a meal, but her words hit him hard. They felt so full of pain and sadness, even though she was speaking so quietly. "What do you mean?" Jack asked gently, his voice shaky. Lily looked up at him, and for the first time, there was a flicker of hope in her eyes. "People always leave," she said, almost like she was used to it. "They always leave. My parents, they left me a long time ago." Jack's heart ached. His mind flashed back to the picture of his own family, his wife, and his children. How could anyone leave their child behind? His eyes filled with sympathy, but more than that, guilt. He felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Compassion. Real, deep compassion. Before he could speak, the waitress arrived with his bill. Jack stared at the girl, unsure what to do next. He couldn't just walk away, could he? But what could he do for a girl like Lily? He suddenly had an idea, one that would change both of their lives. But just as he was about to speak, Lily looked up at him one more time and said something that would haunt him forever. "I know you're just like the others. You'll leave too." Jack's eyes widened, and a wave of emotion flooded over him. He had to prove her wrong. This wasn't just about helping her. This was about showing her that not all people leave. He couldn't just walk out, not without giving her hope. Jack stood up, and with his heart racing, he made a decision that would change everything. He would show Lily that he wasn't going anywhere. What Jack did next would surprise everyone in the restaurant and leave Lily speechless. But the question remained, would Jack's promise be enough to make Lily believe in people again? Jack took a deep breath, trying to steady the whirlwind of emotions inside him. He wasn't sure why he felt such a strong pull to this little girl, but he knew he couldn't leave her in that moment. He walked over to the cashier, paid for his meal, and grabbed his coat. When he returned to Lily's table, she was still looking down, absent-mindedly playing with her bread. Jack didn't know exactly what to say next, but he knew one thing. He couldn't leave her there alone. "Lily," he said gently, sitting back down across from her. "I'm not like everyone else. I promise I won't leave you." She looked up at him, her eyes wide with doubt. But there was a flicker of hope that made Jack feel a little more sure of himself. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. You don't deserve to feel alone, especially not here. You've been through enough already. What would you say if I helped you? Maybe I can do something for you. Something to show you that people really do care. Lily's eyes searched his face, as though she was trying to decide if she could trust him. Jack could see the walls she had built around herself, walls that had been created from years of feeling abandoned and betrayed. What kind of help? Lily asked cautiously, still not fully convinced. Jack smiled softly. He didn't know exactly what he could do, but he knew that offering her something, anything, was the first step. Well, I could start by helping you find a better place to live. Somewhere safe, Jack suggested. A home where you won't have to worry about being left alone. Lily's eyes widened with disbelief. You'd really do that for me? I would, Jack answered without hesitation. I can't imagine how hard it must be for you. No one should have to feel alone, especially a little girl like you. Tears began to well up in Lily's eyes, but she quickly wiped them away. She was trying so hard to stay strong, but in that moment, Jack could see how fragile she truly was. I've always taken care of myself, Lily said, her voice barely a whisper. I don't know if I can trust anyone anymore. Jack's heart broke at her words, but he understood. He had seen enough of the world to know how quickly trust could be broken. Still, he wasn't ready to give up. He wasn't going to be like the others who walked away. How about this, Jack said, trying to lighten the moment. I won't make you trust me right away, but I'll show you step by step that I'm here for you. I'll give you the time you need. Just don't give up on people completely. Lily looked down at her plate, silent for a moment. Then, as if making up her mind, she slowly nodded. Okay, she whispered. I'll give you a chance. Jack couldn't help but smile. It wasn't much, but it was something. Something that made him believe that maybe, just maybe, he could make a difference in Lily's life. But as Jack stood to leave, something unexpected happened. The restaurant's door opened, and a familiar face walked in, the last person Jack ever expected to see. It was someone from his past, someone whose return would complicate everything. Stay tuned to see how this surprising twist changes everything for Jack and Lily. What will happen next? Jack froze as the door swung open, and the figure stepped inside. His heart skipped a beat. It was someone he hadn't seen in years, his former business partner, Eric. Eric was tall, with sharp features and a confident stride that made him stand out in any room. He hadn't seen Eric in nearly a decade, and their parting had been less than friendly. Jack's mind raced. Why was Eric here? He hadn't heard from him since their falling out. And now, of all places, he was walking into this small, quiet restaurant. Eric's eyes scanned the room, and Jack instinctively ducked his head, hoping to stay out of sight. But it was too late. Eric spotted him immediately and made a beeline for his table. Jack, Eric said with a smirk, his tone cold and calculating. I didn't expect to see you here. A little out of your element, aren't you? Jack didn't respond immediately, his mind spinning. He hadn't expected to run into Eric, let alone under these circumstances. The last thing he wanted was for this to turn into a confrontation, especially not in front of Lily. Nice to see you too, Eric, Jack said, forcing a polite smile. He glanced over at Lily, who had noticed the tension between the two men. She looked confused, unsure of what was happening. Jack didn't want to make her feel uncomfortable, but Eric wasn't about to make things easy. Looks like you've been doing well for yourself, Eric continued, his eyes scanning Jack's outfit with a hint of disdain. Still playing the hero, I see. I always knew you'd end up trying to fix everyone else's problems, even if you couldn't fix your own. Jack stood up, trying to keep his voice steady. I'm not here to talk about the past, Eric. I'm here to help someone who needs it. Lily looked between them, her curiosity piqued. She must have sensed the underlying tension. Eric noticed her too, his eyes narrowing as he finally took in the little girl sitting at the table. And who is this? Eric asked, his tone suddenly taking on a more mocking edge. Are you really trying to play the good guy, Jack? Helping every stray you find? Maybe you should start focusing on your own mess instead of pretending to be a hero for a random kid. Jack clenched his fists. He could feel his old frustrations with Eric bubbling up, but he wasn't going to let this confrontation ruin everything he was trying to do for Lily. This random kid, as you call her, has more courage than you ever had, Jack shot back. And I'm here to help her. Something you wouldn't understand. Eric chuckled darkly. Help her. You think this little girl is going to make you a better man, Jack? You think she'll somehow fix everything? Lily had been sitting quietly, her eyes wide as she absorbed the exchange. Jack felt a pang of guilt. She didn't need to see this. She didn't need to hear how cruel Eric was. But before he could say anything, Lily stood up slowly, her voice soft but firm. I don't need anyone to fix me, Lily said, her eyes meeting Eric's with surprising strength. I've been taking care of myself for a long time, and I don't need someone like you to tell me I'm not worth helping. Eric's smirk faltered, and for the first time, Jack saw a flicker of uncertainty in his old business partner's eyes. He hadn't expected Lily to speak up, but she did, and it was clear that Eric didn't know how to respond to this little girl who was standing up for herself, even in the face of someone like him. Jack's heart swelled with pride for Lily. He was beginning to believe that she was more than just a lost child in need of help. She was someone who could stand up for herself, someone who had strength and resilience beyond her years. Eric took a step back, clearly unsure how to handle the situation. He didn't like being challenged, especially not by a child. Jack could see that, and it made him more determined than ever to protect Lily from whatever harm Eric might bring. But as Eric turned to leave, he paused at the door, a thought crossing his mind. You may think you're helping her, Jack, Eric said, his voice low and filled with something dangerous. But you have no idea what you're really getting yourself into. You're just a pawn in a much bigger game, and one day, you'll regret trying to be a hero. With that, Eric walked out of the restaurant, leaving a heavy silence in his wake. Lily looked up at Jack, her expression serious but calm. Who was that? Jack sighed, running a hand through his hair. Someone from my past, someone I thought I had left behind. But as Jack glanced over at Lily, he realized that his past and his future were now linked in a way he never could have expected. And little did he know, this was just the beginning of a much larger story that was about to unfold. One that would force Jack to confront his deepest fears and test his ability to trust again. What would happen next? Stay tuned to find out. Jack sat down, his mind still processing the encounter. He had never imagined running into Eric in a place like this, and he definitely hadn't expected such an intense exchange. But now, with Lily sitting across from him, looking at him with those wise eyes, he realized that he couldn't let the past control his future. Are you okay, Jack? Lily asked softly, her voice filled with concern. Jack looked at her and smiled. Yeah, I'm okay. You were amazing back there. I'm proud of you for speaking up. Lily smiled back, a small but genuine smile. You helped me, so I wanted to help you. Jack's heart swelled. In that moment, he realized that despite everything, the world still had good people in it. People like Lily who were stronger than they seemed, and who could teach others how to fight back against the darkness. The evening passed peacefully after that. Jack treated Lily to a warm meal, and they spent the next few hours talking and laughing. It was a rare moment of calm in what had been a stormy day. But Jack was beginning to understand that sometimes life offered unexpected rewards when you least expected them. As they finished their meal, Jack's phone buzzed with a message. He picked it up, and his face turned pale as he read the screen. The message was from his lawyer. Jack, I've just received news that Eric is planning to sue you. He claims you've breached your business agreement and are responsible for his financial loss. We need to discuss this immediately. Jack looked at Lily, his heart sinking. He knew this day was coming, but it was still a shock. The weight of his past was now coming back, trying to pull him into the chaos once more. Lily noticed the change in his expression and asked, What is it, Jack? Jack looked at her, trying to smile through his anxiety. Just some business stuff, Lily. Nothing to worry about. But Lily wasn't buying it. She placed her small hand over his. You don't have to do it alone, Jack. I'm here. Jack didn't know why, but her words brought him comfort. For the first time in years, he didn't feel so alone. With Lily by his side, maybe, just maybe, he could face whatever storm Eric was about to bring. And that's when Jack realized the truth wasn't about the money or the betrayal. It was about the people you choose to surround yourself with. the ones who stand by you when the world seems against you. Maybe it was time to start trusting again. As the night drew to a close, Jack stood up, offering his hand to Lily. "Let's go home." Lily nodded, standing up beside him. "I'm ready." Together, they walked out of the restaurant, the door closing softly behind them. Jack didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of hope rising in his chest. Whatever happened next, he wasn't facing it alone. And as the two of them walked into the night, Jack knew that his real journey was just beginning. The road ahead was uncertain, but it was one that they would walk together.